Welcome back, folks. So, we're starting our second drug class of the semester, that is hormones. And so today we'll get an introduction into what steroid hormones are, and we'll jump into their history. Before we jump into the history, I want us to have an idea of what we're talking about first, since many of us might not really know what hormones or steroid hormones are. So this class of molecules is often just referred to simply as steroids. You might have already heard this. All of these types of chemicals are derived from cholesterol. Cholesterol is an important part of our bodies and an important part of our diets. You likely often hear it referred to like in a bad way, people who have high cholesterol, but it plays an incredibly important role in our bodies. The steroid hormones that we'll be talking about are molecules that participate in signaling. We've talked about signaling in this class as a way that communication happens within cells, and they are made in the adrenal cortex or in sex organs, and they kind of all look like this. There are two major types of steroids. We're only going to focus on one in this class. We have corticosteroids. These are made in the adrenal glands that sit kind of on top of the kidneys. And then we have sex steroids that are typically made in sex organs. We're talking testes or ovaries, or in the placenta of a pregnant person. And look, we're not going to go into this diagram, but I want you to know there are a bunch of steroids, right? Cholesterol, you can do so much chemistry on cholesterol, and we can do this chemistry to make things like, hey, testosterone, or hey, estrogen, right? It's complicated stuff. Just very briefly, folks, corticosteroids, we have two different types of corticosteroids. They are involved in the immune system and metabolism. We also have mineral corticoids that are important in salt and water balance in our bodies. What we will spend more time discussing are the sex steroids. We have androgens like testosterone. They influence male characteristics and development. We have estrogens such as estradiol or estrogen. They influence what we think of as traditionally female or feminine characteristics and development. And there are progesterones like progesterone that are important in pregnancy and the menstrual cycle. In this class, we're going to be focusing on sex steroids. This is an area of my research, but also these are more commonly a part of social discourse. So let's jump into the history of sex steroids and what we understand about them. So historically, the role of sex steroids was really only inferred by observation of the human form. So one of the earliest examples where we can see kind of the role of hormones in antiquity was King Tutankhamun and his family. They were thought to have high estrogen levels. So on the right-hand side, folks, this is a statue of this king, and you can see that he has what seems to be from the statue breast tissue, right? So people could infer the role of these hormones by physical characteristics that are more connected to either estrogen or testosterone. Now let's walk through time. So in the Roman times, Aristotle thought that only semen was required to produce babies. This is about 350 before Common Era. Cyrannus of Ephesus thought that both men and women produced some type of seed, and this is about 100 Common Era. And Galen first noted the probable function of what he called female testes, and that they likely also produced semen in about 200 Common Era. Now let's move all the way into the 19th century, so quite a large jump. Here we have some of the first experimental data suggesting that ovaries and testes produced some type of secretion, or what we'll think of now as a hormone. If the ovaries or testes were removed, it was noticed that very severe symptoms would occur. And so this brought on the birth of organ therapy. So let's say there was some kind of deficiency, let's say in testosterone, you could use some extract from the testes to treat this hormone deficiency. So we saw a clear link between the organ and the hormone. But it turns out that even though these kind of discoveries in Western science were made in the 19th century, this knowledge had previously existed in Chinese medicine for quite some time, and it's thought to be around 650 Common Era. Sun Simiao, called the King of Medicine, used organ extracts to help treat people. So this was long before the kind of 19th century understanding of what hormones are. Up next, we'll talk about more modern understanding of hormones.